Hello and welcome to another episode of Socratic Satsang. This episode is dedicated specifically to Asperger's, and you can even say autism. All my life, right since my childhood, I was different. I knew it, people around me knew it, but we had no name for it and we couldn't put a finger on it. My childhood was rough. I was bullied, beaten, and banished for being different. I even went to psychologists twice to find out what was wrong with me or what was different about me. After testing, I was told on two occasions that with my IQ being what it is, 163, eccentricity was to be expected, and I just had to live with it. That provided me no solutions, no tools, nothing to work with. As an adult, I excelled in my professional career, but my social and personal life was a different story. It was a wreck. It was like I was driving a car that I had no control over, and I didn't know how to start it, how to stop it, or even how to control it. In my late 40s and early 50s, I began to break down and fall apart due to a series of triggers until finally it culminated in a complete and absolute breakdown. I wound up trying to commit suicide. I was hospitalized in Vancouver. And that's when I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 52. This was news to me as I had no understanding of autism. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And it took a long time for me to climb my way out of that pit. My breakdown also resulted in me losing some basic skills, and years of my memories were just wiped out. I'd lost skills like being able to be around people, driving, conversation, and many others. It took a while for me to climb and figure my way out and rebuild my life. And during this time, I'd spent hours, months, weeks, years just learning about autism and Asperger's. One of the resources that I found super useful was this podcast called The Aspie World, run by Daniel Jones. I just found him so relatable and so powerful. This guy was consultant like me, a best-selling author like me, and had Asperger's like me. And even more than me, he has ADHD. Today, I'm honored and privileged to welcome as a guest on our podcast, Daniel Jones. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. It's such an honor, and I cannot put in words how much of a help, how much of a resource you have been to me, to my wife, and to people around me. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. It's and the honor's all mine. Thank you so much. I always say this to people as well. Time is the only actual valuable thing we have, right? And so when people choose to share FaceTime with me, I always feel super blessed. So thank you so much for wanting to share your life with me, right? But even if it's a short period of time, you could be doing something else, right? So thanks for doing this and sharing time with me, because it means a lot. Thank you.
There's so much to learn from you and so much to be inspired by you. I know that I've gone through several ups and several downs in my life. Why don't you walk us through your journey as to how was your childhood? Were you diagnosed young or were you diagnosed late? What were the challenges you went through?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And I'll get to that. I just want to first say that it's funny. You're the only person I've met who has a higher IQ than me. So I got a highly gifted IQ. I got an IQ of 143 or 144, and my partner also has the same level IQ, or 1 point less. I mean, it's nothing major, but she is the only person I've ever known that's matched me. Everybody else has all been below me. But it's so interesting to meet somebody with a higher IQ than me. I love that, because I always have a rule: if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So you're not going to learn anything from being in a room where you're the smartest person there. And it's true, right? So anyway, that's an old business marketing kind of thing for networking. So my story. No, it's true. And the funny thing about it is I get so understimulated by generic conversation, average conversation, typical conversation with people, because it's you have to kind of, I'll give you an example. It's kind of like if you were a full-grown adult in your mid-20s and then you had to go to work every day, but you worked with 3-year-olds, like it's going to be consuming. You're dumbing down everything you say because you're like, oh, and you're saying the same thing and you're like, why don't they get it, right? And so when I'm talking to average Joes, and I love people, but it's like they don't get it. Like they're not on the same level. Like I'm over here on some crazy high doing crazy stuff, and they're down here just they like the mondial. They think that's okay. They like the mundane, just doing life. I'm like, dude, it's like you have the power of God within you. You know what I mean? Like, come on, like you're a miracle, a walking miracle, and you want to go to the pub and watch karaoke? Like, dude, come on. Anyway, that's just me. Like, and it's so funny. Like, I get so frustrated. I'm like, guys, like, anyway. So I'll answer your question. So, but I do love people. I'm not insulting people. I'm just saying that it's quite frustrating when you have to have kind of like typical conversation, right? It drives me insane. And I guess that's what autistic individuals say. Oh, small talk's difficult. Hey, that's why. All right. So I was diagnosed officially with Asperger's syndrome in June the 23rd, 2013. And that was my first official diagnosis of a spectrum disorder. However, when I was younger, so I was born in 1986 in Wales. And where I live in North Wales in the United Kingdom, it's quite a rural place, right? Like rural isn't like, there's a lot of fields and farmers and like it has its own language, Welsh, Cymraeg. We siarad Cymraeg yn y Gymru yn y Gogledd Gymru, and dwi'n geni yn y Gogledd Cymru means we speak Welsh here in North Wales, and I was born here in North Wales, so you can just, that's an ancient language, right? So that's the mindset of the people. So, I had when I was a tiny baby, I wouldn't take the boob, I wouldn't take a bottle. So my grandmother, and she always says to me, my grandmother was like, I had to spoon feed you milk, which caused me to have like gingivitis when I was like, I didn't even have any teeth, right? And when I was having gingivitis because my gingiva was being irritated by spoons because I wouldn't take anything, which was fascinating. But I was born with a tooth. How weird is that? Anyway, my earliest kind of intervention was my parents were like, Dan's a bit intense. And they were like, yeah, let's take him to see somebody. So they took me to see all kinds of like different doctors. The doctors were like, because I had like what they thought was extreme agoraphobia, right? But it wasn't a phobia. It wasn't agoraphobia. It was more. It was a calculated algorithm of fear, and fear of the unexpected. Because I had my safe space in my house where I like to be in my room with my things. And I explained this in my book, Autism for Adults, the last book I released. It's kind of like, have you ever seen that movie Beetlejuice, the first one, right? There's two movies with Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice. He plays Beetlejuice in it, right? And I think what's her name? There's a very famous female actress in it. She plays like the young girl who's like a bit spooky. Anyway, in the movie Beetlejuice, if anyone's seen it, there's a scene where it's basically about ghosts, right? These people die and then they come back as ghosts and are haunting this house. And the main characters, they don't know they're dead yet. And how they realize they're dead is that they open their front door, because everything's normal inside the house, but they open the front door to go outside, and then suddenly it's chaos. It's like sandstorm, a huge snake thing comes past, and like, it's crazy. They can't find the door, and they're looking at the sandstorm. It's crazy. And that's what it was like leaving my house. It was like, it was crazy. I almost couldn't see, it kind of like was like, oh man. And so they all thought I had agoraphobia, but it was a fear because I wouldn't feel safe anywhere, right? And so I went to see some psychiatrists. Of course, this is like back in like 1988, 1989, 1991, 1990, terrible time for autism research in the UK, let alone Wales, like the most rural part you can get, right? You have farmers and stuff and vets and, So they were like, oh, it seems Dan has an extreme like attachment disorder, agoraphobia. He's very shy. Because I wouldn't speak to anybody. I kind of was almost me, apart from my parents and my siblings, I didn't really speak to anybody. And then they were like, I was very intense. And they were like, geez, I don't know. And so they were clutching at straws. And so I had these labels where they just said, oh, well, I don't know, he's a bit weird, isn't he? Like, and then so in school, it's funny because then going through school, I went to so in the UK, I don't know if you ever spent time in the UK in the scholastic educational faculty, but what happens is you go to like a nursery, which is like a kindergarten, I think you get, or pre-K, right? Like a pre-kindergarten thing. And then, or junior kindergarten. And then you go to kindergarten. And then you're in kindergarten then until you're like, I think you're 10 or 11 and you go to high school. And then you're in high school from 11 years old till 16 years old, right? And then you can go to what's called a technical college, which is still free. It's government funded, and they'll give you a skill. You can go for an apprenticeship. You can get qualifications, so then you can go to university and apply to university. It's like a stopgap between university, right? And then you can go to university after that, or you can stay in high school until you're 18, and then go straight to university from high school. So, in the kindergarten, the primary school, which is what I was in, like before I get to secondary school, same thing. I had special adaptations. Like I couldn't walk to school on my own. Even when I was like 10 years old, and I lived really close to school, but I couldn't walk because I couldn't navigate it. I didn't know how I would get lost. Like I didn't know where I was going. Like I had no foresight of location or geographical, and I still don't. It's very difficult for me to navigate on my own. It's an absolute nightmare. Because everything else is so kind of like there's so much information everywhere, right? Like how do you sift through it? I'll tell you something though. The stimulants I take on my medication, Vyvanse, is fantastic. I think it's lexadenafetamine. I think the chemical name. Anyway, so in the school, I was one of the only kids. I was such a weirdo. Like, and this is what it felt like. I'm just telling you my experience. I was allowed to stay indoors at recess. I was allowed access to the computers because the only thing that gave me comfort was researching the Encarta encyclopedias. Remember those bad boys? So I used to just study Encarta. I loved it, man. I thirst for knowledge, dude. I about the same time, I was about 5 or 6. I used to build robots. I was obsessed with computers, virtual reality. I mean, this is back in the 90s, dude, and this stuff was like archaic, right? And so I was obsessed. I'd some of the times. I remember sitting in my room, and I was so scared of being in there because on my own with the door closed, because I felt a disconnection from the outside, like from the rest of the house, right? And it was kind of an unusual experience. But so I'd put computers around me in a circle, and I'd sit in a circle of computers, kind of just stimming off the fact that I was around this technology, because it gave me it lit a fire inside me, because I was like, wow, like, and this is how I thought about it, and I still do to this day. That the very principle of a graphical user display, or any kind of user display or user interface, is created by raw materials we have dug out of the ground. Like the very nature of that is compelling. We've created visual graphical information from almost thin air. The zeros and ones that are using synapses. Like it's almost like the biological kind of like how, like, you get a saline kind of like distribution across the myelin sheath, and then your dendrites kind of react to that, and then it gives you muscle mushes, right? And so you get a little bit of electricity, bang, bang, and it just fascinates the hell out of me. So I went to building computers and all that kind of stuff. And so when I was in primary school, so in recess, stay indoors, and then during the day, they'd I'd have like I was in like the special ed kind of program, right? Which it was called the unit. Now the only people who would go into it was like a mobile kind of like static mobile home. What do they call it? Trailers, you guys call them in the US, right? But or Canada. But in the UK we call them caravans. So it's a static caravan on the grounds of it's supposed to be temporary, right? But it was everyone had it. It was like a thing in the UK. I don't know why. Anyway, so the profoundly disabled kids would be in there 24/7, but the kids who had additional needs but could still sit in the class like a normal kid, I didn't have like a special frame or anything. I could walk. I had no mobility issues. They'd take us out of that class and they put us into the library in the school, and I'd be there with like a one-to-one, trying to get me to read. And this is an example. I was about 25 before I could say the months in order from January to December. It's very difficult for me to comprehend. Although I have some kind of synesthesia with that. The days of the week and the months of the year are colors in my mind. And same with mathematics. I like to. I love ionic transfer in chemistry. I'm a chemist, right? So I have a degree in chemistry. But ionic transfer of single ions. It kind of makes a perfect like wall. You're basically slotting things in, and you want to know how many you're going to make it until the wall's complete when there's no gaps, right? It's amazing. And that's how I see mathematics as well in my brain. It's kind of like, it's like a picture of like, it's like a wall. And it's funny actually, because music has the same experience. When I'm playing music, I feel like it's like painting a picture, and the picture is a wall, and the wall has to be complete. And I can tell you, if I hear a song that is a complete wall, I know that song's going to be really, really good. It's going to make a lot of money. A lot of people are going to like it. And I know if I hear a song that I know how to fill it in, I know where the gaps are in the wall. It's quite an interesting thing to say. Anyway, I was in the special ed program in school, and they were just absolutely garbage. Like, I'm dyslexic, so my reading and writing is pretty terrible. Still is to this day. Hence, still being an international best-selling author in 3 languages, with 2 books, 3 countries. It's crazy, right? But I'm still dyslexic as hell. That didn't help at all. They didn't know. Yeah, practice makes progress, but you're never going to fix it, right? You know what I mean? And I'm never going to stop. Like, I nerd out. Like, I've got this book here, like, and I'm like, putting notes on this book. Like, my handwriting is abysmal, guys. I don't know if you can see this, but like, handwriting. But I thirst for it, and this is a hack, actually. I listen to the audiobook whilst I'm reading the book, so it's like having somebody read it to you, right? So you can see it, and it's a great hack. And the guy whose book I just picked up, actually, he said the same thing. He recommends this. So I guess, I don't know if he's dyslexic or not. He said he has a hard time reading anyway because he gets a lack of focus. ADHD, 100% ADHD guy. Anyway, so then I go to high school, right? Oh my God, what a transition. And it's hell, because I'm like, I was in primary school, and I kind of really disliked primary school as well, because it was torture. Like, I'd make myself like sick so I wouldn't go into school. I didn't want to do it. I hated it. And I never use the term hate, by the way, guys, because it's such a strong, powerful word. I never use it. And I cover this in my first book, Become the Force, right? And Dr. Emoto, I don't know if you're familiar with this study about how he used blessed water and turned it into ice crystals versus water that he like shouted like horrible names at. And
Right. Yes.
ice, right? And it changes the dynamic. So that's why I don't use the word hate. And it's a good like lesson for everybody to kind of think about. But then when I went to primary, to secondary school, something kind of an involuntary, everything happens for you in life, right? Like, and I see it as this, I say God has a plan, right? And it doesn't matter if you think, I don't think God is a guy on a cloud with a big beard pointing at me, right? That's not what I think of God. When I think of God, I think of like everything in the universe, it comes from a source, right? It could be an alien, I don't know, but I just say the word God because a lot of people understand that, right? And I say that God has a plan, and the plan is very simple, that life is happening for you. It's not happening to you. It's not beating you down. It's laying out in front of you what you should be doing. And if you don't get the idea, bang, it'll kick you in the knackers to go, no, you're going the wrong way. This is the path. I'm like, dang. When I was 11 years old, just about to transition to high school, my dad was a coal merchant. I know, Welsh, haha. But like, my dad's a coal merchant here in Wales, like all Welsh people are coal miners, right? Chwarelo Rodovi. It's a Welsh song about coal mining. And Chwarelo. And I don't know if you've heard the Welsh language before. A lot of people get fascinated when I speak a bit of Welsh. They're like, I didn't even know there was a language in Wales. But so my dad was a coal merchant, but I don't know if you remember, we had a coal miners' strike in the 1980s in the UK when Margaret Thatcher was our prime minister, and she kind of she tried her best to negotiate, but it didn't work. It was a big stalemate. Anyway, the trickle down of that was that the coal miners striked, so that the coal merchants who delivered the product had no product to deliver. So what do? My dad's business imploded completely. And it was my family business. My dad and his 2 other brothers, they owned this business together. And my dad and his brothers put their houses down as equity in the business, which was a bad decision. Don't ever do that. This is a life lesson for everyone, right? And so we lost the business. We lost our house. We lost my family home when I was 11 years old. The only place I felt safe suddenly became the banks. What an interesting time in my life. We became homeless almost overnight. We were put into emergency accommodation, which is like the project, right? Like, like a social housing, right? Project that and it was a 20-house housing estate in the 90s, dude. There was bars in the window. There was no central heating. Like, there was no like central cooling or heating. There was damp on the walls. There was one coal fire in the living room, the garden was ransacked by drug addicts and losers and criminals. The next door neighbor had just been raided because he not only is a child sex offender, he was also a drug addict, a drug user, a drug dealer. I saw somebody take their own life in that street. I saw family members getting so drunk and so out of their face on drugs that they'd almost beat each other to death. The police were out every weekend in the summer. The police were there, loud music, you couldn't relax. It was incredible. And what did that teach me? I had a two-way option, right? I could have gone like, hey, life sucks. Why is this happening to me? Wow, I'm a victim. Or I could go, hey, guess what? It's time to pull your socks up, use the brain you've got on your shoulders, realize how fucking unique I am, and move forward and push myself to get myself out of that situation. Because I tell you what, I don't want to do. I don't want to end up like the other people in this street my age. Because with people in that street my age, I think only 2 of them are alive now. And so 70% of the people that were there didn't make it because of the conditions were poor, right? In a first world country, man, crazy. And so I experienced, like being like a bratty kid. I had this like 3-story Victorian house right next to the beach, and then in an instant it was taken away. And I had nothing, and my parents could buy me anything I wanted. So I loved CB radios. I don't know if you remember Citizens Band radios, like Breaker Breaker.
Yeah.
Loved these. I was obsessed with CB radios. I loved the aerials. I had aerials in my room. I had all the CBDs. These again, like computing technology, that kind of thing. Loved it. 90s and 80s, big. Loved it. And my parents used to like be able to buy me different ones. I had a handheld one at one point, but just overnight, bang, everything disappeared. And then you see your parents crying because they have no money for food. It's like, holy, like, what do I do? What is going on here? And I never really got upset by it, but I did learn some valuable lessons. It gave me like, and I thank my parents for teaching me this lesson, because my dad's like, oh, I made a hell of a mistake, and I put but no, it was perfect. It had to have happened, because now I understand A, the value of money, B, the value of family, C, the value of food. Like I've got lots of friends who are Muslim, and I always stick up for them when people kind of like have something to say about Ramadan. I'm like, no, you don't understand why they do this. They do this so they can appreciate the fact that they have access to food and clean water, and the rest of the population of the world, 1 in 3 people don't have access to water. So to go through a struggle to remind yourself, this is how precious life is, So that happened to me. But this is the blessing in disguise. The housing project that I lived in, the wall was shared with the high school I was attending. So I could walk to school on my own because I could just jump over the wall. Now, I know a lot of people kind of exaggerate things. There is no exaggeration. Like, my house is here right up to the boundary wall, then it's the high school. And the first ever comprehensive high school in the UK, actually. It's a listed building in this hometown. So I went, and then so it gave me this confidence. I was like, shit, like I could give an inch and then take a mile, because what was happening was that I gave a little bit of like, I'll jump over the wall and walk to school on my own. Why not? I'm like 11 years old and fuck it. And then I was like, hey man, and it gave me this like bit of a boost. I was like, dang, I can do stuff, And so going to high school was a turning point for me. I was still a weirdo. I had no friends, but then I found my tribe, because what happened in high school was that my dad's a professional musician. He has been forever. He was a coal merchant, but he was still a professional musician. So he was a coal merchant during the day, and in the night he'd go out and he'd play music. He's a songwriter, and he's a singer, and he's a guitar player, and blah blah blah. And so I never been interested in music until I went to high school, and then I met a couple of guys, and they were into Star Wars action figures, and I was obsessed with Star Wars action figures. I love collecting Star Wars action figures, the vintage ones, right? So I actually have this. This is if you know anything about Star Wars action figures, this is a blue snaggletooth. Oh, yeah. This is very rare. This is the most rare Star Wars figure you get. This is him complete with a gun, and he's in this case. So I collected the entire set. And I recently sold the whole set. Well, most of them. I still got some of them, but I sold the set because I went through this whole like minimalist thing. I was like, I want it, but I'm not getting rid of Snaggletooth, right? Because he's like the one, right? Everyone wants Snaggletooth, and that thing's like a $2,000 toy, So anyway, and so I met this guy, and he was really into music, like Nirvana and stuff. And up until this point, I was very versed in music, but it was more like Motown and like the Eagles and like the Beatles. My parents were like, and my dad's a bit of a hippie, so he was like, Joni Mitchell and things. And so my friend was like, dude, you got to hear like Nirvana and the Offspring. And I was like, and it was like 1997. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll give it a juice. So the guys I was in my tutor class with, I was like, dude, this is sick. Like, I was like, this music had teen angst, had everything inside me, to be like, yeah, like the underdog, the people bullied every day. And so I taught myself to play music, and by doing that, every day I'd come home, right? Like some kind of like most autistic thing I've ever done. I'd come home and I'd throw my uniform off because I hated wearing a school uniform. Like the feel, it was horrible. I'd take my school uniform. I'd go upstairs and I'd get guitar, a bass guitar and drums, and I would just listen to music and figure it out and teach myself. Every day for about 5 years I did this. And then it opened up so many doors. You became cool because you could play music, right? And you could learn music faster than most people because my brain works like, and music is maths, right? So that changed the game for me. So what happened was I realized that the cooler I could be, the more accepted I would be, right? So then I I love playing music, and so I literally did this. This is one of the most autistic things ever. And my girlfriend always mentions this. Bless her soul. She always says, "Dude, you are such like a nerd." Like I went to the library and I went to the librarians. I said, "I need books on skateboarders and cool kids." And she said, "Okay, cool, come with me." So she brought me this book. And the book had a page. I remember it. The book had a page here, and it was like how to be a skateboarder. It was like you have to have baggy jeans, you have to have a hoodie, you have to have a like a Walkman, right? Sony Walkman, everyone had a Walkman. Backpack to keep all your stuff in. You can drink Coca Cola, have a skateboard and these shoes and a hat and be cut and listen to like Blink 182. And I was like, dope. I said to my mom, I was like, Mom, buy me everything on this page. And she said, okay. So she did. And then that was it. I became the person that I needed to be to survive in those shark infested waters. Because without it, I would have been at home with like a buttoned up kind of like flannel shirt, slicked side pattern. And I used those fusions. Like I always have a side pattern, still have a side pattern. And I had those fusions of side pattern, but I fused it with being a skateboarder, right? And I taught myself to skate. And I love skateboarding, it's great. But by doing that, it allowed me to mask more, right? In a society. So I was
Yeah.
accepted. When you're accepted, you can relax. And I have this theory. I'm going to publish a paper on it. It's called it's a scale. I don't want to call it like the Dan scale or the Jones scale, but it's a scale of autism realityhood. And what it means is when you're a child and you're in the autism spectrum, life is confusing as hell because you're trying to learn to navigate the world for the first time. You're trying to learn to talk for the first time. These are difficult for people who don't have neurological conditions, right? But you add a neurological difference on top of that, that impacts your communication ability. You have a bigger issue, 10 the issues, right? You're having to try and figure out what foods you like, what your sensory versions are, how you talk to your siblings, how do you play? How do you play with other people? How do you know what you like, what you don't like? And then this is the same pattern all the way up until you're about 13. And when you come to about 13, all the demands of life has just kind of leveled out. Your parents do your laundry. Your parents cook your meals. Already know how to breathe and to sit, and you maybe have a friend or two, or if you don't, who cares? You've got video games and activities you like, or music in my case, and you know, uh, and so you coast, right? And so autism is very intense for children until they get to about 13 to 23, 21, 23. And then it starts to increase in intensity. Why? Okay, now you got to learn how to be a husband or a boyfriend or a wife. Now you got to learn how to manage bills. You got to learn how to talk to your boss. You got to learn how to manage a mortgage. Now you got to learn to manage car payments. You got to learn how to budget for food. Then you got to manage how to deal with kids. And then you got to manage how to live independently. Oh my God. And it just becomes, so the demands on the scale are almost equal. The scale is kind of balanced on each side where it's equally as difficult for autistic adults as it is for autistic children, but autistic tweens, teens, and adolescents have a little bit of breather, which is where the majority of people will not get diagnosed because they coast. And it happened to me. So I'm coasting and coasting. Start working full time. Bang, depression. Bang, suicidal thoughts. Bang, antidepressants. Bang, I can't hold down friendships. I can't do squat. And I'm going to work every day. I'm like, how do people hold down jobs? Like what the hell is going on? And I was put on phones and I'm like, and like kept failing. And it wasn't until I was 26 years old. I'd come on vacation from a job, and the job I was working in, I'd been there for a while because there was only 5 dudes in this office. It was a very small company, and we scaled dramatically because it was a like a smart tech company for automotive industry, big business, big money, great. And I was kind of like a general dog's body. Did some of the marketing, did some of the coding for the site, did some of the graphics, ran the campaigns. It was great, man. I loved it. Fixed the printers sometimes, did some of the actual physical runs of letters. It was amazing. But I went out on vacation for a week, came back. The office had grown to 200 people, and they'd moved the office. They moved my desk. Dude, I just freaked out. And I just had this crazy meltdown because I'd never experienced anything like this. Because I'd been job hopping, right? I'd been like, a month here, I can't do it. I'll go to a different job. A month here, I can't deal with it. Go to a different job. I had so many jobs, dude. And so they sent me for therapy, and I was completely wrecked, dude. This wrecked me. Like I didn't know who I was. My girlfriend at the time was come pick me up from work. My dad had to drive my car home. I was a wreck. I was like physically shaking constantly. Like I just didn't know what was going on. I was like, and it was overwhelming. Like I didn't know what was going on. And then so I went to therapy, and during the therapy, they were like, "Oh, we're going to send you for some some assessments because there's a lot not adding up here, and you think very differently to a lot of people. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, they sent me for an assessment, and they were like, yeah, you got Asperger's syndrome and ADHD and probably OCD as well. I was like, what? And I'd already been diagnosed with dyslexia, and they said, like, with the anxiety and the depression, everything else, they were like, this is just the perfect storm, like, and I'm like, dang, and I had no idea what autism was. So you can just imagine, like, the struggles I had for 26 years, and then all of a sudden they're saying, oh yeah, it's this. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I went online, dude. And this is what's interesting. I went online, and I'm a visual thinker, right? Because I think the appearance of mass, it greatly improves your ability to learn, especially in 3D. So I went online, I was like, do Asperger's syndrome, just articles, no videos on YouTube, nobody I could relate to. There was nobody there, nobody like me, like nothing. I was like, what? So I sat down and I was like, sod it. I'll put a video out. I just did 26 years of fumbling out in the dark. If I don't put a video out, nobody's putting a video out. So I did. It's still on there to this day. June 2013. Boom. Aspie World. First video ever. A nervous wreck. Couldn't look at the camera and bad eye contact, but I did it. And I'm glad I did it. Changed the course of my life forever. But what I'm saying is that the appearance of relative reality needs to happen, and this is what my entire business model was made around, right? So I say business model. My business model is this: 90% of everything I create is free, and 10% of it people can pay to do coaching with me or download a course. And the most expensive course I have is $197. I mean, like, it's not like I'm saying there's a 10 grand program. No, it's just, no, who's got 10 grand to pay on a program? You want to improve your life. You don't want to become bankrupt. So, but 97, everything's free, apart from the books. Okay. But then again, honestly, this is how I work. If you can't afford my book, email me. I'll send you a PDF of it for free. I don't care. Like, because it's not about that. It's about getting the information there. Right. And my entire business model is built around the fact that I need to make as much relatable content for the average autistic adult, like I was, like you were, so that they can look at it and go, dang, man, I get, this is it. This is me. I can understand this, right? I don't feel alone anymore. Because that the half-life, sorry, it's talking scientific terms, but the the age of death of the average high functioning autistic or Asperger's or low support needs autistic, like yourself and myself, is between 35 and 50. And the reason being is because they take their own lives a lot of the time, or they get so addicted to substances, alcohol, drugs, prescription medications, because those are dopamine hits, right? Nobody's guiding them, and they're alone. They're alone in the mission. Nobody should be alone. And it's such a conundrum, because as much as I love being alone for the fact that I get to decompress, and I also despise being on my own because I feel lonely. And it's a bit of and I did a video on Instagram about this. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Like the autistic kind of to and fro. We want to be not social, but we want to have friends. We want to have people around us, but I also need space. And so everything I do is to try and bridge that gap. So I'll be your friend. I'll be the guy. And you know what? This is funny. And I have a motto: do what other people won't do. You can go to theaspieworld.com/text, TEXT, and you can send me a WhatsApp message right now. It comes through to my phone, and instantly I will message you back. I sleep about 4 to 5 hours a night, maybe. And I have no rule of like who can contact me. Today I went to a coffee shop in town because one of my subscribers was local, and he said, hey, I'd love to meet up and hang out. And so this is me and him hanging outside a local coffee shop. His name is James, nice guy. And he said, dude, I need some information on this. Can you help me? And I'm like, yeah. So we did like an impromptu kind of like coaching. I didn't charge him. I just did it, because I was like, yeah, why not, man? You're in my hometown. Like, cool. Who does that? Nobody does. You tell me an influencer who's got like almost 1 million followers across the platforms who go out and meet absolute random strangers from their followers to give them help? Doesn't happen. Well, it should, but it doesn't. And so I am accessible at the point of reach. Like, message me. Like, I am real. I'm a real guy. I will talk. And this is something else. When I go do events, when I do live talks, I will come out to the audience after I finish speaking. Then I'll talk to every single person who wants to speak to me individually. That's important to me because I wish somebody had done that when I needed it. I don't want anybody to feel like they're alone. If they need somebody to talk to, if they need a friend, if they need somebody to give them advice, message me, email me, text me. You know, it's like it's always the better option. And so that's kind of like my whole ethos on it, right? And I do this, and I still get stick for it. Somebody said to me the other day, like, I was advertising one of my programs. I got like a $27 program that I'd done for $17. It was like a promo. It was like how to kind of like turn your obsessive interest into potential career, right? Somebody's like, wow, if it's so good, why isn't it free? I'm like, dude, if you want me to continue to give 90% of my stuff away for free, I have to monetize somewhere, right? I have to create revenue. And it's not like I'm saying, hey, give me $1 million or you learn nothing. I'm like, hey, that's fine. Don't buy it. You can find probably the information somewhere scattered across all of my content. But if you want it direct, what's $17? You know, like you could probably find that on your couch if you looked hard enough, right? And so, and they say, oh, wow, you're ripping off disabled people who have low incomes. I'm like, dude, this will solve a problem for you for a very low price. And then what happens? It then funds my business so I can help more people for free, right? Just like you were for the first 90% of my content that you've digested. And so people don't understand that business model, but I think it's worth mentioning because people always say, why do you charge for random courses? I have like 3 courses, 3 programs. If you want to do coaching with me, it's like $60 per session. I mean, come on, like, you know, God dang it. But anyway, so, and I've lost track of the conversation. Any other
No, it's
questions?
fantastic. And
Thank you.
yeah, actually, I want to go back to a part when you did get diagnosed. I'm curious, what was that like for you? Did you experience grief, relief, both, something else? And if you'd known younger, how you feel like that would have shifted some of those years?
You know, it's funny. I spent almost all of my adult life, you know, up until I was like 20, obviously, up until I was like 26, I spent all that time, which is a big chunk of my adult life and all my childhood, thinking, man, there's something wrong with me, you know, like, and then I was like, dang, I wish I knew, you know, and like having meltdowns on my own, like I'd have meltdowns on my own, um, uh, and I think I get to a point where I'm like, what is going on? Like, how is this? And I'd reflect on myself and think, I'm an absolute weirdo. Like, who does this? You know, who turns their room upside down? Who needs to put the mattress on top of them to feel calm? You know, I needed that pressure, that deep kind of proprioception, you know, activation from the mattress on top of me. And at the time, I'm like flustered, you know, I'm crying. I'm like, oh. I'm like, this isn't normal, you know, or normal is normalization, like a wave function, not normal as in like, you know, you typical person. And I was like, what is wrong with me? So I'd gone my entire life thinking like this, right? And it made difficult every relationship I've ever been in, not just romantic, friendships. You know, my friends would be like, I remember when I was in high school, my friends would be like, hey, we're going to McDonald's or a burger joint or something. You gotta come. I'm gonna get milkshakes and burgers and stuff. And I'm like, I love milkshakes and burgers. Don't get me wrong. Like that's one of my favorite things. But like, 'cause, you know, fast food, Asperger's, you know, whatever. But like, I was always like, I can't go. I don't want. I'm I'm fearful of being around other people because I can't understand their intentions. I don't understand a lot of the nomenclature. I feel threatened by people because I don't know what they're thinking, who they are. Like, you know, there was a lot going into it. The car journey there. Do I trust my friend to drive? We're kids, you know, like because you can drive at like 17 here in the UK, and I'm like, all of those things, those variables then said to my friends, that gave signals to my friends that Dan's an asshole because he doesn't want to come and hang out with us, you know? And I was like, that was difficult. So experiences like that happened the whole time. Especially, this is one of the biggest ones. Why I don't drink alcohol is because my friends would be like, "Come to my birthday party. I'm 21. You know, we're all gonna get wasted." I'm like, fuck. I'm like, and I spent all my time avoiding parties like the plague, right? Because I don't like parties. I like people. I like to know stories. I like to learn from people. But I mean, the average person at a party is like, is going to tell you some card trick or how good they are at darts or some pub joke. You know, it's like just it's mind numbing, kind of, to me anyway. And so I was like, oh, geez, it's the most understimulating thing. I'm going to get overwhelmed, like, and so I'd make up all these excuses. But then there's only so many excuses you can make up before they say, dude, you're an asshole, right? And so then I go like, okay, how the hell do I do this? So I used to drink alcohol. I don't like the taste of alcohol. Don't like it at all. I think it's a bad thing. So drink alcohol, get drunk, and then sign up because then it would give you the confidence to go out and do it.
Yeah.
And then I was always thinking to myself, why the hell? why the hell do I have to use this drug, alcohol, just to be able to function, and my friends, can just drink every night, and party like, average teens and whatever. So I'm like, oh man, I really need a change here. So when I got my diagnosis, it was kind of like an aha or a cognition that I came to. I was like, oh, okay. So this explains a lot of my unusual behavior. But then my thirst for knowledge increased towards X. I was trying to solve for X, right? What is X? And this variable was Asperger's syndrome. Like, what is Asperger's? What is X?
Mhm.
Solve for X, right? So, what is it like? Y times Z divided by V is equal to X, right? So I was like trying to do my best to kind of like figure this out, like and so I had a conflict. I had a wow, this thing's wrong with me. And then I was like, hey, wow, what is this? And then so you kind of have a sigh of relief saying like, okay, I'm not completely crazy, but then you go, well, I might be because I don't really know what this is. And then you tell people, hey, I've got this diagnosis of autism, and then they go, and then half the people say, yeah, it's obvious because they may know something about it, right? And then um, one of my best friends, Alex, he's an asshole, and I love him to pieces. He travels around the world with me, and he works for the Aspie world. And he's a comedian as well. The guy's amazing. His name is Alex Watts. He's got ADHD, and we do like talks together. Like we'll do like a tag team. He'll do like ADHD, I'll do the autism one. Like it's great. But I was like, Alex, dude, I got an autism diagnosis. He's like, yeah, I called it in 2006. I was like, oh, shut up. Like, he's just like the most unsupportive, but funny in the same way. But then you have, on the other hand, when you say people like, I got autism, they say like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't see it. And I'm like, "Well, that's great, but you're not a clinical psychologist, so please just leave me alone." And then people say like, "I'm not gonna treat you any different." And I'm like, "I ain't asking anything of you. I'm just informing you of a condition. If you were ever wondering why I'm a bit of a weirdo, there's actually there's an answer for it, right? But also, I can still be an asshole and be autistic, right? So sometimes I can be an asshole, and I apologize for that. I take full responsibility if I've ever been an asshole or a grumpy bones, whatever, right? I try my best to not be. We're only human at the end of the day. And it doesn't mean that it's an excuse for everything. It just means that most of the unusual quirk behavior will probably be down to this. So,
That's amazing. So some of the things that I do right now in my life, just to keep steady, are just like you. I have issues with small talk. Small talk's always been difficult. I still just cannot relate to small talk. I
mm,
just shut down or land up somewhere else in my head. I don't get sarcasm. I don't get teasing. Or
mm,
sometimes some humor just goes right past me, or I get it and I just ignore it. I don't know why. But the things I use in my life right now are minimize noise,
mhm,
watch sensory loads. If I find that I've had too many or two or three consecutive loads, then I just make sure that I shut myself down so that I can recover. When
mhm,
I
mm,
meet people for the first time, I make sure that they know that I'm autistic,
mhm.
not because I want any change in their behavior, but so that they know what they're dealing with. And
Yeah,
when they see the weirdness that you spoke about, it makes sense to them. I don't expect to be treated differently. It's just
just so
information
they
that'll
know.
help them. I watch my diet like crazy. I'm off sugar. I eat a super, super clean, regimented diet. I can have, not can, I do have the same meal for years together.
Love
No
it.
change in my meals. Um, I watch out for addictions because that's the easiest thing to fall into.
Slippery slope, man.
And I love serving or helping people. That's any way I can help people. I just do it because it helps me a lot. I exercise like crazy because it keeps off all the twitches that I keep getting all the time. And one of the main things I use is I have this concept of bedposts. So um, once I let a person into my life, when I say let a person into my life, I mean they're tested, they're tried, I trust them completely.
Mhm,
So I
mhm,
have a couple of bedposts. Here's my biggest bedpost, my uh, ally and my counselor and my wife.
fun.
So I have these few bedposts. And these bedposts in my head have the authority to tell me to shut up, or tell me that I'm going too far or I'm off track. And I find that having bedposts not just anyone who you like, but someone who's tried and tested, once you
Yeah.
have these bedposts around you,
Yes.
it helps stay on track. It also helps reel me in when I'm going a little too far, which happens regularly. So I find these are tools that help me a lot, help me in my life, and help stay on track. What are your thoughts and what do you use?
It's funny, like I relate so much to what you were saying, almost to a T. But you know, I I kind of like I have like these like mottos that I go through, right? Like, and there's things, and it's kind of like it's to rein me back in. And so, um, I used to be like 50 pounds heavier than I am now, right? And so I went through fluctuations. Like I was really, really, really skinny, like deathly thin, because I survived on like soda and candy and junk food, like, to keep me afloat. 'Cause my brain was just dying to have this energy because I was burning through it all the time up until I was about 19. Excuse me. And then I had an operation. I was in a wheelchair for about a month or so, and I couldn't move. And so your metabolism starts slowing down when you're about 20, right? And so I was like 21, I think I just turned 21. And then I have this operation, and my diet is still candy and junk food and soda. And then I put on like all this weight, right? And then I come out of the wheelchair and I'm like, oh man. And so I decided to I was like, fine, I'll just work out and eat healthy. So I became really, really ripped. Like, look, I've got a picture. So I like came really ripped, got a six pack, and I was like, cool, done it, completed it. And then life just kind of happens, right? And then that kind of got out of the way. And so like again, recently, in the last year, I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. But this was me when this is the first time I got shredded. I don't know if you guys can see that. So and I'll show you the before picture as well, as you can see what it was
Very
like.
impressive.
That was my before picture.
Wow, what
So,
a
yeah.
transformation.
Yeah, that took me 12 m that was like, yeah, 12 months, that was 1 year. But right now, this is the current one. I'll show you I got the before and after pictures, this one. So this was a year difference, right? And it was yeah, it's crazy. So, having discipline to kind of drag my butt out and work out every day helps. This is the most recent one, right? So that was me a year
Oh,
ago,
Yeah,
and then me
wow.
now.
Yep.
yeah.
So
Yep.
so, so that was one of the things I had to kind of say, "Okay, my rule is I have to work out because I have two young boys. And so if I don't become healthy, two things are going to happen. One, I'm going to die earlier. I'm not going to be a father for them, and I want to see them as much as I can, right? And I love my kids to pieces, and I want to spend as much time with them as possible. And then the second thing is that if if they're looking at me and like dad's a loser, not only do I like look at all my flaws, right? I got autism. I'm having meltdowns in front of them. And I've had my fair share. He hits his head, like he's not. He takes meds and stuff, trying to save himself out, and he has therapies and all this kind of stuff. My dad talks too fast, and he gets triggered by all noises me and my brother make. And so, and then you add in, and he's fat, like he's just this big blob who eats all this junk food. And I'm not fat shaming. I'm just saying that I don't want my kids to look at me and say he's unhealthy. He's out of control. He has emotional deregulation. I want to look at me and say he's trying his best. I want to be a role model. I got two boys, and I'm the boy. I'm the man. I'm like, dang. So I go right. I have to work out. I have to be better than I was. So that's what I do. And so I live by other mantras. Take massive action. I look at stuff and I say, I do the exact opposite of what other people do. People say like, oh, that sounds like too much work. I'm like, good, I'm in. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm in. And like, why? I'm like, because anything worth having should be hard work, right? So hard work
Yeah.
proves to me that like I'm moving in the right direction. If somebody says to me, oh, it's going to take a lot of work. I'm like, awesome. How do I start? Because I want to do that because I know that the reward is greater, right? The dividends is huge when you give and you sacrifice and you give
Yeah.
more and you train more and you overcome bigger obstacles. And then the other, do what others won't do. If somebody's like, okay, here's an example. My agent, I'm signed to Zebedee Talent, right? And Zebedee Talent's the biggest talent agency for disabled people in the world, right? They do everything from TV, movies, like everything. And my manager told me, she's like, dude, I got the brand deal for YouTube. I was like, cool. She said, it's this price. I was like, cool. I said, can you push them on the price? She goes, I'll try. So you messaged them and said, no, they're hell-bent on this price. They're very stern on it. Do you want the gig or not? We can turn it down. I said, no, that's fine. Do this. Tell them that we accept it, and I'm going to do twice as much work for them. She's like, what? I said, go tell them I'm going to do 2 times what they asked for. And she said, yeah, but they didn't increase the price. I said, I know. She's like, why would you do that? I said, because I want to do what other people, nobody's going to do that. That brand will be like, holy crap, this guy saw my money. I said, no, and he gave me 2 times what I'd asked for. So they're going to remember me for as long as they run a business being like, this is an influencer I want to work with again. And so this is my mantra of I'll do what others won't do. And this comes in many facets. And then the other one is I run my life off 2 scenarios that actually happened, right? You're going to love this. Sorry if I'm waffling, but when I was in high school, I did electronics, and there was a Chinese guy called Stephen Chan. So I call this the Stephen Chan analogy. And Stephen Chan was a Chinese guy, very bright, very clever, better at electronics than me. I mean, I sucked at electronics, but like I was there, man. I could do it the bare minimum, right? Like it was high school, for Christ's sake. And then so it was our final major project of the year to pass out the course to get the qualification in electronics. They were like, dude, here's your brief. Build me something that works. And that's it. I thought, okay, cool. You got 2 weeks. You got weeks of prep, and then we'll test you at the end of the second week. So you get a week to kind of fix any bugs. Like, okay. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, what am I going to do? Oh, okay, a light sensitive diode with a battery in circuit, right? So that when it goes dark, light comes on. Put it outside somebody's door by their keyhole. Job's a winner, ace. So, and it was the old days. I don't remember this. You'd have to like get the actual circuit board and you draw on it with a pen, and then you'd acid bath it, take it out, and then you'd etch away the copper that wasn't acidically removed, right? So, which gives you your layout of the circuit board. That's how we used to do it back in the day. And so, so I did that. It took me about 2 days, 3 days, put it together. By the end of the first week, tested it. It worked. Cool. I could just relax, do my findings and all this bullshit. Stephen Chan decided that he was going to make a PCI board for a computer, which he could probably do, not in the time frame he was given. Week 1 went by. This guy still hadn't started acid bathing his circuit board. I'm like, dude, like, he's like getting it right. I'm like, dude. And I watched this like from the sidelines, and I'm like, man. Week 2 comes along, and we're halfway through the last week. This guy has to present this in 3 days. And he hasn't even acid bathed it. The last day, he was rushing around like a headless chicken. He couldn't even test. He brought the product to the table, half done, half cocked. Couldn't even test it because it was just rubbish. There was me, an inferior product, an inferior student. I got the qualification. He didn't. Why? Because he tried to overcomplicate the brief. The brief said, give me something that works. He could have done anything. He could have just made a battery charger, an LED that came on when he turned a switch. Anything would have done. He underestimated his ability to get something done within the time given, but he overestimated his complexity of what he needed to do. He didn't fulfill the brief. And so I always use this in life. I'm like, don't be Stephen Chan in this scenario. Poor guy. I'm sorry, Stephen, for watching or listening, right? But don't be Stephen Chan. And the second thing was that when I did chemistry, I don't know if you've ever done chemistry on a degree level, but when you do chemistry at a degree level, they're all about organic chemistry. And organic chemistry is this like crazy thing like this, right? I have to show you this. It's just basically like a bunch of just like molecular compounds, and then they'll give you like a structure, like, I don't know, something like this, right? And they'll say, look, right, this is what you've been given, right? And you're like, okay. Right. Oh, I forgot the resonance on this. Okay. And then what we want is this, right? Okay, hold on. I swear this isn't crystal meth. No, I'm joking. It looks like it though. It's not crystal meth, but it looks like it. So they'd be like, you've got this, give me this. And so what they were asking for is that we have to do a workup within chemistry. They say, oh, you put in some solvent here that will take this off and it will cleave this bond. And then you move it around because the electrons will jump around to down here. Then it changes this to something else, right? So this then becomes Rx. And then you'd have to get something in. But then what I realized very early on in organic chemistry, I couldn't stand this garbage. But what I realized that aluminium chloride, ACl, would it's a great leaving group. It would just cleave all of this crap off here, so you'd be left with the benzene ring, right? And so
right.
I just chuck aluminium chloride into the mix in enough quantities and molar density so that I'd be left with just one resonance benzene ring like this, and I'd just chuck on the function group. But like, okay, I added this to it, and I did that there. So what it was getting to X as fast as possible, but not following they couldn't mark me down. They were like, yeah, he's right. He did what we asked, but
Yeah.
we wanted more organic chemistry, but he did what I asked. So, like, how could they mark me down? Love it, man. I'm all about hacking the system because I can't stand, like, why overcomplicate it? Because look, in life, nobody's going to give you as much time as you need. You're always at race against clocks. So let's find the quickest, most efficient way to get it done. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So anyway, yeah, sorry for that science lesson. But yeah,
It's like a Dan Nye the Science Guy right there. You're taking on so much that there's a lot of the sensory pieces. There can be meltdowns, those things. Anything that you use tools wise, and how do you prevent burnout when you just have so much happening in your world?
Good question.
yeah, it's a great question, and I get it a lot. Burnout happens because we overload the mule. And so, you ever played the game Buckaroo, where you're like, it's an ass, a donkey ass, and then it's a plastic donkey, and then you have to load bags and blankets and things onto it, and then the one person will load the last thing, and it'll cause Buckaroo, it'll just kick back, boom, and all the things go, and you lose the game. I like to think about my life like this: it's Buckaroo, right? How much can I physically take on? How much can I mentally? How much can I neurologically take on before my mind buckaroos, right? And I didn't know my limit because I had a meltdown in the office, right? But now I'm aware of my limits, and I'm aware of my limits because I know there are early warning signs that start to happen.
Yeah.
You get less motivated. You start to hit inertia, and inertia in the fact that, like, you can't start a task, or you're on a task and you can't deviate from it, right? Kind of like Newton's law of motion. You get a really dry mouth constantly. You start having more anxietal episodes, or your OCD will increase, right? And then I go, I'm taking on too much here. So I just rein it back. I just let something go. I say, I'll deal with that when I finish this product. And then it kind of comes back. And that's how I avoid burnout. But in terms of sensory processing, it's Russian roulette most of the time, because somebody be like, for instance, so my coach is like, dude, we need you in Arizona, in Scottsdale. We're doing an event in November. And like, okay. And they're like, you should come because, we're going to do some one-on-one stuff and you're going to learn some things. And I'm like, damn. So I have to just kind of get any ticket, go to any airport, get on a plane, get to Scottsdale, right? And I don't know who's going to be on the plane, how many kids, how many dogs, what the airport's going to be like. Is it going to be busy? Is it going to be not busy? Like, you don't know. But there's 2 secret weapons I have in my back pocket. This is awesome. The first one is Apple AirPods Max, which is these ones, like the over the head headphones, right? Like these things. These things are unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. They block out so much sound. I used to use the Bose 35s, right? Which is the noise cancelling headphones. I used them for quite a bit. Funny enough, because I worked on a Netflix show called Atypical, and we gave the character, it's Sam, we gave him the same headphones. That's why he's got them, right? Because I recommended these both. Anyway, so Apple noise cancelling headphones, head and shoulders above the rest. Put them on, boom, love it, ace. Not only that, but I can also listen to my podcast, to my work. It's great, and they're comfortable as hell. Even on an airplane, these things block out sound. They're just insane. But my secret weapon, guys, you're going to love this. I don't know if you ever tried this. So your brain has, or your phenol activity is always regulating itself, and it will deregulate a regulation. And what this means is that it will go like, oh, I'm overstimulated, I'm going to freak out, I'm having a meltdown, and it'll stay in that cycle because it's releasing adrenaline and dopamine, like everything's just firing, and then you kind of get, So you need to deregulate the deregulation. You need to pull it out. Kind of like if you had a bucket of ice water and you poured it all over yourself, your body then says to you, hey, forget everything that's going on. You need to survive right now because everything's going to start shutting down. We are hitting sub-zero temperature water. You are going to die. It turns to survival, and that's it. Your heart and brain go, we're in like binary mode right now. Everything else can just absolutely go to hell. Just forget, because cold showers, right? If you ever had a cold shower or an ice plunge, yes, it's good for your muscles. More importantly, it's good for your mind because it resets everything. You start thinking about survival rather than the crap that you don't need to worry about. Oh, Jenny said something to me at work the other day, and I don't care. Who cares about Jenny? I'm trying to survive here, man. So how do I do it when I'm on the move? I can't just go for a cold shower in the middle of the airport. That's what you could do, but it's not going to happen. Extremely sour candy. You put extremely sour candy in your mouth. Your brain doesn't know what the hell's going on. It's like you've just been punched in the face. Deregulation, a deregulation, which causes an outer phase, which neutralizes the wave, right? So then you get a singularity or a normalization of the wave. And if you think about your emotion or your mood as a wave function, it's going like this, then you give it candy. Boom. Sour candy. Because your body doesn't know how to respond. And so it's kind of like changing the environment internally, right? Because externally would be going for a cold shower, going to a quiet room, going outside, going for a walk, going to sit in the rain, jumping into a pool. You can't do that in the middle of an airport or in school or in work. So clunk, sour candy. Always have sour candy with me. Ace.
Love it.
Superb.
Shock to
Superb.
the system.
Thank you. So,
You're welcome.
in my work with autistics and people with neurodivergence, I've come across parents and people who are neurodivergent themselves,
Yeah.
who avoid going for getting diagnosed. They don't
Yep.
want to get diagnosed because they have this view
Stigma.
that once you get diagnosed, you're labeled, you're put into a box, and I don't want to live in a box. I don't want to be labeled. My own view is completely different. For
Mine too.
me, it was like I was trying to handle machinery throughout my life, and I had no clue what does what with the machine.
Yep.
So when the machine would break down, it's like driving a car, and you don't know which is the accelerator, which is the brake, or how the gears move, and your gears are grinding, you're banging here, banging there. That was my life. Getting diagnosed for me helped me deal with a lot of things. I figured out how the car moves, where the accelerator is, where the brakes are. I have a great navigator with me. And just like you, Dan, I have
Yeah.
no sense of direction. For
Oh,
me
mate,
to go to even the local store, though I've
Yeah.
lived here 5 years, I still use Apple Maps because I get disoriented all the time.
100%.
One of the
100%.
biggest things that getting diagnosed helped me with was dealing with shame. Before diagnosis, I didn't know why I'm behaving the way I do, or what was setting me off, or even what my triggers were. So there was this sense of shame inside that I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm doing this or why I'm like this. So my view is that getting diagnosed is not about being labeled. It's about understanding. It's about figuring out how the machine works, and also getting those explanations you've never had, which help you deal with shame. What are your views on getting diagnosed? And
Yeah,
what's
dude,
your
I have,
advice to people who are on the spectrum and
yeah,
their parents, or especially of kids?
100%, dude. Like, I have two things to say in this. First thing is you hit the nail so hard on the head just then with one of the biggest life hacks that anybody can ever learn. I learned this very similar to you, automotively. There's a book by L. Ron Hubbard called The Problems of Work. Now, L. Ron Hubbard is more famously known for science fiction and being the founder of Dianetics and Scientology, right? Which is a bit of a taboo subject sometimes. And just FYI, I wrote my first book on theology was all about all different types of religions, and I covered Scientology. I had to read a bunch of Scientology books to understand it, right? And he's got this book called The Problems of Work. Now, what I realized about Scientology, actually, on a side subject, is that it's actually based on Buddhism, which is really interesting, right? I didn't know this until I'd read these books. So it was all based on Buddhism, which is quite interesting. Anyway, so then I was less scared to read some of the other books. And he's got a book called The Problems of Work. Now, this book outlines one very simple but extremely important fact. He said the reason people have anxiety or work-related anxiety is because they don't understand the operation of the machine that they are told to operate. They don't know how it works. And I related to this because when I was 19, my father was like, Dan, you're going to learn to ride a car. I was like, I'm not going to drive a car. He's like, you're going to drive a car? I'm like, dude, I'm not going to drive a car. He's like, you're going to drive a car and I'm paying for it. Because then by this point, my life had got better and my dad had the job and stuff. I was like, all right. And he was like an exec in this kind of like, so he was like, it's a life skill. I'm like, oh. So he arranged the whole thing, and I was like begrudgingly in his car, and I was like, and I didn't get it. And in the UK, we drive stick, right? We drive manual transmission, and so I'm like, and I just didn't get it, right? And then I went home, and I was like, I don't get it because I have no idea what I'm doing in the car. I don't know what my feet are doing, or what my hands are doing. So I went on YouTube, And I was like looking, I was like, how does the engine work? How does the clutch work? What's going on? And then I was like, oh, that makes sense, right? I knew the machinery which I was operating. Now I know how it works. Next lesson, boom, confidence, knew it. And so you just mentioned that exact same thing, which is what the Problems of Workbook is all based about, which is a great book, by the way. I highly recommend you should read it. It's not like theological or anything like that, or spiritual or weird or kooky. It's just literally like a life skills book, which is what, I don't know, it's like known for, right? Apparently, anyway. So what do I feel about diagnosis? Very interesting question. When people say like, "Oh, a diagnosis is going to put me in a box and make me, give me a label," who's putting you in a box? Only you are the person that puts you in a box, because you relinquish control of the situation that you find yourself in. And what I mean by this is, I'm obsessed with being in control of things. And people are like, "Oh my God, you're a control freak?" I'm like, no, but I'm obsessed with being in control, because I'd rather be in control of a situation so I can help judge the outcome than somebody else be in control of my life. And I ain't got, what would you rather be, out of control? Do you really want to live out of control? No, nobody wants to live out of control. Rule number one, being in control is a good thing. It means a good thing. It doesn't mean you're a control freak, you're going to try and manipulate people. No, it means that the systems, variables in your life, you have complete control over, which means you can navigate the outcome to a better succession most of the time. So when people say, "Oh, I get pigeonholed and put into a box," that's called self-victimization. You're putting yourself in that box. Who is it that put you in that box? Sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. If somebody says, "Oh, you're an autistic person, you're all the same." Okay, cool. I always use what David Goggins called the blue hair analogy, right? Somebody says you got blue hair and you don't have blue hair, then what does it matter? "Oh, you got blue hair, you look like an idiot." Thanks, my hair's brown, but thanks for the crazy comment. So when somebody says to you, "You're autistic and you're all the same, and you do this, and you're an R word and all this stuff," all right, cool, buds. Like, makes no difference, because none of it's true. Don't allow third-party bullshit to dominate and control your life. So don't be afraid of something. And this is another motto I live my life by: be afraid and do it anyway. Because what is it? Fear is an indicator that you're moving in the right direction. It should be scary, because what is it? What, comfortability? Sitting at home? Sitting there eating chips, watching the TV? Nothing changes. Your life becomes boring, meaningless. You're not going to succeed in anything. You're not going to get to the levels that you want to get to, because I know each and every single person listening to me talk right now, no matter if it's 5 people or 5,000 people, they all have internal beliefs that they want to be a millionaire. They want to be a superstar. They want to succeed as a parent. They want to be the best person in their job. They want to climb up the corporate ladder. Whatever it is, they have a goal that they want to attain. They ain't not going to attain that if they're sitting on a butt every day, not taking action that causes fear in them. And so I say to them, when you're like, "Oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed," good, be pigeonholed and change it, because the only way you're going to survive is to take action, massive action towards a goal. And the goal is understanding. And you said it yourself. When you were diagnosed, it opens a cognition of understanding. And you're like, oh, a self-realization. I'm no longer crazy Dan. I'm kind of accepted crazy Dan. No, but it's like, I'm no longer crazy. I'm clinically something, which then allows you to say, if I know what something is, I have a greater chance of figuring out how to manage or control it, right? If you do not have an accurate assessment description of your neurotype, be it neurotypical or not, how are you going to control that situation? Back to the machinery. It's like operating machinery you don't know how to handle. And so how do you urge yourself towards even survival, let alone your life, if you don't know the system you're operating? So it's very interesting that you said both of those things, because I agree. And I think that people need to be more risk takers, right? And not risk takers like jump off a cliff and hope for the best. I mean, like, risk takers in, like, if it feels uncomfortable, good. It should feel uncomfortable, because you're going to move into a bigger situation. I spent my whole life feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to move in those directions. But when I did, amazing things happened. And I'll give you one example. I call it a reverse effect. I realized when I was writing my book, I wrote my book, Autism for Adults. You can see it behind me here. I was trying to sit down and type out a book, being dyslexic, ADHD, OCD, and autistic. Ain't no way I'm sitting down on my desk for an hour to write a chapter out of my book to even send to the publisher. Forget 10 chapters. And then I was like, oh crap, you paid me a bunch of money. What am I going to do? Then I realized I go running every day. I've just been running right now, and I listen to audiobooks, right? That's how because tactile feedback, audio with tactile feedback gives me so much more Why? Because it's kind of like if I said, "Hey guys, how's it going?" versus me punching you in the arm going, "Hey guys, how's it going?" You'd recommend the second one to be a more impactful experience, right? So tactile response or physiology with audio or any kind of stimuli creates a greater understanding. So then I was like, wait, why don't I just reverse this? Why don't I just run and talk to my phone, dictate to it what I want to write, right? Worked like a dream. Did 8 1-hour sessions, wrote my book in 2 weeks, right? A best-selling international book, wrote in 2 weeks. Nobody believes me. Whilst running on a treadmill, sweat my ass off. Loved it. Amazing. Hard work. Fearful. Didn't know if it was going to work. Risk take. Amazing outcome. Amazing effort. Bestseller in 24 hours in the US, Canada, and the UK. Even sold out in Canada. You can even buy a thing in Canada. Excuse me. So, how does that relate to other risks in life? And I challenge all autistic individuals to do this. We spend our lives wanting to have the same routine because we love having comfortability in the routines. And I get it. I love the same meal every single day and having those things because those comforts give us the sensibility that we can stay in calm and then do the complexities of things that we need to do. And I understand those. But there are big obstacles in life that will require small changes that will increase our potential to understand and embrace change rather than fear it and actually negate it. And what this means is this. Look, I want bigger opportunities in my life because I want to meet more people. I want to network, and my network is my net worth. So how do you increase your net worth, or how do you increase your network? Well, you have to go outside of those circles that you're already in, right? Like I said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong flipping room, right? So I drive to the grocery store. I park in the same spot for the past 10 years, and I go to the same grocery store. So what do? I flip it. I go to a different grocery store. I walk there, and hey, guess what? By going to a different grocery store, I meet somebody I've never met before. And this person happens to need help with sales and systems and funnels. I'm like, hey, I'm your guy. And then he says, hey, by the way, I run an event for Mind, a charity in the UK, and maybe you want to come and talk at the event. I said, yeah, I'd love to. Cool. My net worth just increased by my network increasing. Why? Because I took actions to reverse a process that I'd got comfortable with, but I took the risk of wanting to implement change. And the beauty is, if you can implement the change before the change implements itself on you, you're in control. The problem with autistic individuals is like we don't like change that is deviating from the path that we've chosen to be on. So just choose to change the path you're on. The problem is exterior. It's a moment of inertia. An object in motion going through a vacuum can't suddenly change or deviate from the path without external energy, right? Or kinetic energy from external stimuli. When that happens to autistic individuals, bang, singularity happens. We can't deal with it because we weren't expecting it. But if you preempt to change the path you're on, you're in control. You can do it. And so it's really interesting. I love that, and I teach this reverse method. I'm actually writing a book about this reverse method, but I love it. And there's so many analogies I can do. There's so many variables how this fits into your life. How do you use the reverse method? And it's very simple. I'll give you this one last takeaway, and then you guys can talk. I'm so sorry, I'm talking at you for like an hour. If you look at life like this, problems exist because a solution exists, and we only know the problem exists because we know the opposite is a solution, right? So what are we looking at here? Are we looking at a dire problem with no solution? No, because the problem wouldn't be able to exist if there was no solution for it. It would just be apparent, right? But we have a problem, which means we have a solution. So we just flip it. So rather than look at a problem, we're just looking at a potential towards a solution. That's it. That is the simplest form. Just always relate to that. So just go, okay. And so even when faced with new problems in my life, I say, good, give me more problems. Because I know that when I solve a problem, I'm moving further, and I'm gaining, right? Because when you solve a problem, you gain more. This is what I love doing. I love solving problems for autistic individuals. Hence why my course is just solving a shit ton of problems to make them more confident, my Bulletproof Brain course. So anyway, I hope that answered the question in a very roundabout, long explanation way.
Oh, it was lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm good. I have 2 questions to ask you.
Yeah.
The first one is your tips because my wife has ADHD, so some
Sure.
tips for her. And after that, the next question I'll come to is what you're working on, what we can expect release next from you, and how people can contact you.
Dude, ADHD is such an interesting one. I find it it's one of the most motivating and also debilitating things ever, because I'm highly motivated to do loads of things. So I'm like, I want to flip a table over, but first I need to take a shower, and then I need to write down every word I've ever heard, and then I need to think about, while I'm writing the words, that I should start writing another book, and then I'm going to look at the book and think I should design the cover. Oh wait, I left a dishwasher, and it's crazy. Like you end up doing loads of things and not completing one, and it's like, how do I overcome this? How do I deal with this? Right. And so for years, it's really interesting. I have two techniques of how I overcome this. One is that my mum also has ADHD. She's undiagnosed. She doesn't know it, but she has ADHD. My mum and my girlfriend are very similar. As Sigmund Freudy as that sounds, it's very true that you find people who are similar to your parents because that's where you find comfort, right? And so my girlfriend was like, when I met, she's like, "Oh, something weird about me." I was like, "What?" I was like, like a vampire or something. And she's like, no. I love true crime documentaries about murderers. That's how I relax. I was like, oh my God, my mum does. Right. And yeah, it's a whole thing. I did a video about this. Right. Yeah, I did a video about, and then she's like, yeah. And she does this thing where all my life I've been doing it. I've been cleaning up after my mum. My mum would come into the kitchen, open a cupboard, get a plate out, cupboard stay open the drawer, get a knife out, get the mayonnaise out, fridge is open, mayonnaise lid's off, mayonnaise is on the bread, the salad bag is out, she's put salad on the salmon, salad's still out, the meat's on the side, she's cut the meat, the fridge is open, everything's opened. Everything's there, as if the Mary Celeste has just happened. She disappeared. I come in, it's like the ghost of the chef. I'm like, where is the person making this sandwich? And I go in the living room, I'm sitting there. I'm like, Mum, everything is open in the kitchen. And she's like, yeah. Dude, even the knife just on the counter. I'm like, huh? And I've got I like things to be in place, right? So I'd go around tidying up after my mum. And so I'd be like closing this door, closing this, and then getting annoyed. And then I'm like, and then my girlfriend does it. And then so I'm like, so me and Flavia, so I'm in her house. She's like, dude, and I'm forever closing drawers and putting the dishwasher away and doing all these things. But I love it because it gives me dopamine to complete a task, to put things away, right? And so the task I said to myself, like, hey, do more of this, more tidying up after other people, because one, it's doing something that a lot of people would not want to do, so it's a good thing, and it trains you to not want to do it yourself, which is why I don't do it, because I feel not pain, but there's a pain point in having to pick up other people's shit, and so if you force yourself to pick up after other people, you won't be messy yourself, because that's the last thing you want, right? And so that's number one, is tidy up after another ADHD, and you'll soon learn the handicap of not having to do that. Then the other thing, is self-challenges. When I first, so I haven't drunk alcohol. This tattoo here symbolizes that I haven't drunk alcohol. I had this when I had no alcohol for 5 years. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in almost 17 and a half years. And so when I decided this, if I just said to myself, hey, I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore, I quit. Not because I had a problem with it, it's just that I had to drink it to be social. So I'd go to a social party and I'd be like, oh, fuck. And I'm an idiot, by the way, because I could have just not gone. But like at the time I was like, down. And then so I just ended up drinking, right, to kind of stabilize the situation, so I could actually stay there and give my friends the celebration that they deserved in my mind at the time. So then I said, I needed a different method. This isn't working. Just saying I quit alcohol is bullcrap. Like, anybody who wants to quit smoking and say, I quit. Oh, okay, after this one. Never happens. So I was like, all right, why don't I gamify it? Why don't I do this? And it was all eternal. I didn't tell anybody. I just did it myself. I said, I'm going to see how long I can go without actually drinking alcohol. Like a dare, like a bet. And I don't gamble at all. I never gamble. I'm dead against it. I think gambling is the devil's playground, and it's only designed to make you dumber, poorer, and out of control. Because somebody's more in control. If your finances are out of control, somebody's in control of you. So I was like, but I can play this game, right? I can play this game. I used to play, video games when I was a kid. Let's do it. So I was like, Dan, do you want a drink? I'm like, no. And then it's like, all right. And I'm like, how long can I go without this? So I'm like, hey, I made it through the first party without needing alcohol. All right. And then a month passes. I'm like, hey, I've been a month without drinking alcohol, and I've been to 2 parties. All right, let's see how many we can get, right? Because the more you accumulate, the more dopamine's released, and the more dopamine's released, the better you feel. So then I just gamified it. So I've been like 17 and a half years, like just saying, no, I don't do alcohol, but how long can I go? So I'm like, that's why I know the amount of time it's been. And so So the gamification of alcohol, I applied this same rule to my ADHD. I say, I have a rule that says, if something needs doing, you bloody do it straight away, Dan. Don't, don't procrastinate. Okay. So I'm like, oh, I need to put that cup away. Damn it, I need to do it right now. Right? Be obsessed with following through the rule you set for yourself. Because if you have no self-discipline, then how on earth is anybody going to be able to have some trust or faith in you, right? Because you need to be disciplined. Imagine you go to a gym and the trainer's like, well, he comes out and he's excessively overweight or morbidly obese, and he's like, yeah, oh, I'll train you. And you shake this guy's hand, you're like, this guy has no self-discipline himself. What's he going to teach me? And so the proof's in the pudding, right? Like, people want to say, like, this is another example. I said this to my one of my stepkids. He was like biting his nails. I said, "Oh, don't bite your nails." He's like, "Why?" I said, "I'll tell you a simple reason why. If anything else, you should listen to this one reason." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Look, if you go to shake somebody's hand and they look at your hand and they go, 'God, this guy's got no self-control. He bites his nails.' I'm not going to hire him for a job. He's not going to do anything. He's got no self-control. He's not going to listen to commands. He can't even listen to his own commands." It's important that we can take control of ourselves and bear the burden of our own commands, because that sets us up for good standing in many things. So when people talk to me, they say, Dan, you're highly disciplined. Dan, you're highly motivated. Dan, you're really good at organizing things. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. Because I make a point of being like, if I don't do this, it's a detriment to me and the group as a whole, you know? So that's the tip. When you see something that needs doing, do it. No matter what you're doing, do it and complete it. Don't, because what the ADHD person does is they'll say, yeah, I should do that. And then I should do this. And then that one's half done. This one's half done. I do something else. That's half done. And you got like 5 half done things. No, no, no. You say, I need to do this. I'm going to do this one. And it has to be done right now. I cannot leave this until I complete it. And be obsessed with it, because we have an obsessive personality. Because we can get obsessed with random shit. Like, we can be like, oh man, I love Twilight, man. I can recite the whole thing backwards. Like, every book, and then you're like, but I can't put away dishes. Like halfway through the dishwasher, I'm like, I'm out. I'm doing something else. No. You have the obsession and it's because you don't think of the bigger picture automatically, right? Like I said about the discipline, the self-control, the self-discipline to show, radiates outwards how disciplined you are and how reliable you can be. But now you know that, you say, shit, I want people to think I'm disciplined and reliable, because I want people to hire me. I want people to trust me. I want people to rely on me, And so, all right, I'll do it. Follow it through to a succession. And that's it.
I think that also builds a lot of trust in yourself too, right? That self-trust when you
It does.
follow
It
through on
makes
those
you
things.
crazy confident, because you're like, fuck,
Yeah.
man, I can do this. I can do anything. And also gives you crazy dopamine hits, which also caps your cravings to do more of the stuff that is kind of like, look, ADHD people are prone to be addicted to pornography, drugs, alcohol, gambling, all the things I'm dead against, by the way. I can't stand any of those things. I think porn rots the brain. I think gambling rots the human condition. I think alcohol creates a deficit in the conscious of reality. Drugs make you disconnected from yourself. And so all those things, and spiritual love, all those things disconnect you completely from who you are as a spiritual being, or a sentient being, or a being with a soul, should I say? Because we can all agree that everyone has a soul, regardless of what religion or non-religion you're in. Like I say, I always say this. I say, look, atheists can tell me, "Duh, I can't believe you use the term God all the time, blah, 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 and you pray." I'm like, yeah. And guess what, atheists who don't believe in anything? When you're on the front line and there's a gun to your head, or there's a crazy catastrophe about to happen, you'll be on your knees praying to your God quicker than you could ever think. So don't come to me and tell me that there's no such thing as a God in your mind, because we all know. There's a rule of thumb. There are no atheists on the front line. And it's true.
Yeah.
We all believe in something. We just have to, we don't allow ourselves to do it because we feel judged by other people, because we feel the need to allow other people to control, from their viewpoint, our life, which is crazy, right? I want to be in control of my life. I don't let other people's viewpoints dictate what I do. I take on board their viewpoint and say, thanks a lot, cool. And if I want to use some of it, I will. But it doesn't control me. I control me, That's what's important.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Beautiful. I agree and resonate with quite a few of the things you just said. Gambling, alcohol, literally poison for me. And I've been on the front lines. I'm a veteran, and that's made me more spiritual than anything else. What do we have coming from you next? Do you have a book? How do people reach out to you? Or can you give us something about what's going on with you and what's next?
100%, dude. I'm always 10x, right? So I'm doing multiple things at once. Thanks, ADHD. But I'm actually seeing all of them through to completion. I have a book that is just going out right now. We just sent out going out to tender for publishers, because I've had a lot of publishers come to me that want more books. So now I'm like, okay, well, I'll write the proposal. I've got an agent, and we'll go to the book publisher to see which one wants to give us the best deal, because, I'm not going to be shortchanged here. So I got a book called Autism for Autistic Parents coming out, which is practical strategies for dealing with kids if you're autistic, right? And the kids could be autistic or not, but it's more to do with the parents, right? Because there's very little on this. And there's also very little guidebooks for autistic fathers. Nothing. There's nothing from an autistic father's point of view. It's always a female perspective, always about the kids being autistic, or it's about how the female can not lose sight of herself as a parent. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's currently the only niches that exist, and those need to exist. But also, we need to support the parents in the fact that, okay, yes, we have all of those tips now for the parents to relax and stuff and do all those things, but it's not about that. How the hell do the parents navigate having these kids? Because they're on the autism spectrum. I could barely navigate having a dog at some point. So I'm like, now I have 5 kids, dude. So I speak from a very good experience, 2 biological, 3-step, like 2 autistic, 1 level 2 autistic, 1 level 1 autistic, 1 ADHD autistic, highly medicated, extremely challenging, but beautiful kids. And so it's like, it's so fun. I was like, dude, I just learned so much, like from these kids. I'm like, people need to know how to survive in these situations, right? And so, so that's what's coming out for me next in terms of books, which is part of my Autism for Autistic Adults. There was one for Autism for Adults, and there's like Autism for Teenagers that's coming after that. And then, other than that, personally, I have 2 things launching. One is launching today, which is my one-on-one coaching scholarship. So I have 5 places available. People can apply. And then it's a 3-month coaching program with me personally, because, like, dude, when I coach people one-on-one, it's like I unlock something in their brain, and they're like, holy smokes. Like, they like, I don't know what it is, but people, and literally, I had people phone me saying, like, dude, I need some motivation. Help me. Like, I don't know what it is, but people find me electric, right? They find me like very like, energizing them from even through the fucking screen. So I'm like, okay, cool. I need to get this out to more people, because I want to get people psyched about stuff, right? I don't want people sitting at home worrying about like, oh, yeah. I want us to be like, yeah, let's go. So I'm like, ace. So I've launched this scholarship because I want to get 5 people in there, because all I ask in return is that they give me a good review if they found benefit from it. If they didn't, that's fine. They just quit the program and off they go. But if they do stick the whole program out and they get a big benefit from it, I want them to write me a testimonial, because that helps me, secure more clients who want that help, to prove that this helps. And then the big thing is my course, the Building a Bulletproof Brain for Autistic Adults in 7 days. Dudes, I am just like, I can't even begin to tell you like the things that I cover in this course. I'm going to give you a very short snapshot. Okay. I'm going to read out some of the things. Okay. So, day 1 is how to build real confidence without fear, rejection, even if you've always felt misunderstood. Right. And so this covers things like how to trust the process works without needing proof, even if you've never seen anybody do it before, how to achieve growth without worrying about your age, even if you think it's too late, how to speak clearly without misunderstanding, even if people don't get you. Right. Let's think about this one. Day number 2, how to create a fresh future without being haunted by your past failures, even if nothing has ever worked before for you, right? How to take back control without feeling overwhelmed, even if life feels chaotic, right? How to believe in yourself without shame, even if you failed many times before. So I'm solving all these problems. Okay, day 3, check this out. How to discover who you truly are without pretending to fit in, even if you felt like an outcast all your life, including when you got diagnosed, right? Because when you get diagnosed, you're kind of like in the dark a bit, like, oh, no. So it's like how to be authentically you without being exhausted, even if you've tried masking all the time, right? There's so many things that people need help with. Some of my favorites here, how to thrive in a world not built for you, so you don't feel left out, even if accessibility seems impossible. And this is crazy good, right? Like how to fit in society without losing yourself, even if you feel alienated. It's stuff that people don't even like it's crazy. Even solving the future problems. Check this out. How to feel strong without hiding away, even if it seems easier to just be alone, right? Which we were talking about earlier. And then this one is really interesting. How to access life without barriers, even if autism accessibility feels invisible, because this does happen a lot, right? You feel like, I'm one of my favorite ones. How to get hired, for a job without stigma, even if employees see autism as a weakness. This is interesting because, and this is another one. Once you are hired, right? So they go through that, they're going to say to me, Dan, yeah, but what if I get hired How do I get support? Okay, so this is another piece of the program: how to be supported without guilt, even if you need extra help in services. So it's funny, people, all of these things. It's a 7-day module, and I can guarantee it. And what happened? How the people enter the programs? They go to bulletproofbrain.org/get, GET, and they can actually take the first module for free. So I'm giving away the first module completely free. You can just go to bulletproofbrain.org, or for some reason, www.bulletproofbrain.org. You can go there right now and download the first module for free. And if you like the rest of it, you can log on, or you can enroll in the course. It's only $197. It's lifetime access. But what's interesting about it is that when they first come into the program, after they do the freebie thing, they do a confidence test, and I score them, right? On a confidence test, it tells them where they lie on the test. It shows them where their confidence lies. And usually autistic individuals, which is obviously why I did the course, they're really low on the confidence scale. They have very self-doubt is high, their self-motivation is low, their self-confidence is low. And then I take them through 7 days. I even have an automated calendar that they download, and then it inputs all the stuff to their Google Calendar and their Apple Calendar, and it emails them every day saying, hey, get up. Today's video is this one. I believe in you. Don't lose faith. Get it done. If the only thing you do today, get it done, in a manageable time frame. And they go through all the things, And by the end of the 7 days, these guys are literally bulletproof. Like, it's insane. Like, I showed you a snapshot, right? Of like, I don't know how many. I told you I think maybe about 7 things there, or 8 things there. Do you know how many actual pieces to this there are? How many lessons there are? There are 70 lessons in this, but they're all they're fused together, right? It sounds a lot. You think 70 lessons, but that's like 10 lessons a day. But the lessons some of them are like a script that like a journal that you fill out, you fill out your bits, and then how to approach people and talk to them and get what you want out of the conversation, right? So it's just a very simple script. So that's one, so it's not like 70 hours of videos that you have to sit through. It's it's different. It's like there's things to read, there's things to take away, there's things that you keep with you, references that you go to all the time. It's not you have to do it there. But it's interesting because I'm sick and tired of seeing autistic people who are not confident, because you know what happens when autistic people become confident? They do amazing things. Magic happens. Like Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Elon Musk, Greta Thunberg, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. These are monsters. These are monsters in a good way. They build stuff like interplanetary species. Elon Musk, Starship, Apple changing the game of computers, technology, integrated systems that are just far beyond the reach of our comprehension, thinking this stuff is ace. The 2 dudes who made Google, right? One of them's on the spectrum. It's if we didn't have Steve Wozniak from Apple, or Steve Jobs, right? 2 types of autism, by the way, as well. Very interesting blokes. We wouldn't have, this incredible smartphones. Dude, I don't know if you know, but the mouse we use every single day, this was invented by Steve Jobs in Apple. They said, because before then you'd have to code everything with just a keyboard, right? And then he was like, no, we need a user interface where you can drag something on the screen. So Apple made the mouse, so now everyone uses it. Everyone's got a mouse now. It's crazy. I love it. Apple invented smartphones. Everyone would say, oh, BlackBerry invented smartphones. No, it didn't. BlackBerry invented a keyboard stuck to another device. Apple invented touchscreen smartphones and the App Store. There was nothing like this before them. Why? Because autistic individuals who had confidence put their confidence where their heart was and went, I'm going to do this. And I don't care about ridicule. I don't care about judgment. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks of me. I don't care what box, category, label, whatever you want to call me, because sticks and stones break my bones, names never hurt me, right? So as long as, they're not beating me up daily, let's go. Let's go and do this thing. And that's what I want. I want people to just rise like lions and be like, let's go. And it's ace. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I always thought that the mouse was invented by Xerox, and they didn't have a use for it, so they just open sourced it, and then it was used by others. But this is fabulous information. I didn't know about Steve Jobs coming out with the mouse.
Yeah, so you're right. So I think is it like Bill English or whatever, the guy from Xerox did invent the idea of having, I think he patented the idea of having a mouse. It wasn't implemented into a computer, because remember, Xerox only did facsimile machines for many years. So the Xerox mouse was a controller for the facsimile, not a graphical user interfaced cursor, the cursor, right? And I'm going to leave you one more story about Steve Jobs, which I think is absolutely fascinating. This is exactly what I did. Steve Jobs, when he was in university reminded me when I was in university. I was doing chemistry in university, right? And at break times, I used to go. All the kids used to like, the young like 21-year-old dudes. Like I went back when in my 30s because like I had to get my grades up to standard because of leaving school and I didn't have academic kind of background. All the kids would go out and get drunk, go party and go downtown, have lunch and chill, smoke a bit of weed or whatever they do. I was like, me and my friend Tom, who's also autistic, right? He's got a savant brother as well. Tom's an amazing guy. His whole family are doctors, like PhDs, amazing people, great people. Anyway, so me and Tom would run to the library, the science library, and we'd go to the waste paper bin and we'd pull out past exam papers from other courses to learn more about environmental science, physics, engineering, electrical engineering science, computer science, because we thought, hey, there is literally a facet of information. There's like a whole vault that's free for us to use. And we're idiots if we just leave it here when we got downtime. So we just go there and we just test ourselves with like open source papers and stuff. It was ace. And so I owe a lot of my understandings of many things to the fact that I utilized the time I had with an opportunity to access somewhere that had that information. So when Steve Jobs was in university, he was learning computer science because he built he started working for IBM, him and Bill Gates actually both started working for IBM back in the day, and the original Apples were IBM computers. Anyway, and the same as what we call all facsimile machines used to be called Xeroxes, even if they weren't a Xerox machine. All computers used to be called IBMs. That's called domination of the market. Incredible, incredible domination. Those people, geniuses in marketing. Anyway, Steve Jobs was like in university. He said, "Well, on my breaks and my lunch breaks and recess, I'm going to just sit in other lectures, right?" Which I did do as well in university, by the way. And so Steve Jobs used to sit in other lectures. And one of the lectures he sat in was cursive and calligraphy writing, right? And so he taught, because it's free, right? You can sit in the lecture. You already access the university. You might as well sit there and learn it. Okay, he's not going to pass the exam, but who gives a shit? He still knows the information. So he learned calligraphy. He wrote the first 10 fonts that were ever used, type fonts that were ever used, because he went to those extra classes and decided, he was like, dude, we should make these type fonts. Steve Jobs invented type fonts. Like, it's absolutely insane because he used his brain actively, right? This is the difference between convergent thought and divergent thought. Right? Convergent thought would have been like, oh, I'm going to go take a break and I'm going to sit in my car, smoke a cigarette, have a coffee, and hope and pray that the exam coming up isn't going to kick my ass. Quite on the contrary, a divergent thinker goes, cool, right, exam's coming up. How do I get my brain staying on track and getting those things? I'm going to learn more. I've got an opportunity here to not miss out, and I'm paying up my ass for it, so I might as well. We all paid how much to go to college? Like I paid like, I don't know, $100,000 or whatever to go to college, so we might as well. So amazing things happen when autistic people have self-confidence to go with their thoughts. Use divergent thought. Don't follow and fit into convergent thinking because it doesn't work. Not for individuals who are neurodivergent. So anyway, that was that.
That was beautiful
Powerful.
and powerful. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been such a fabulous conversation. This has been not just beneficial to our listeners, but hugely beneficial to us also. Fabulous insights and incredible similarities. It just blows my mind.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Amazing. Like I said, you can go to theaspieworld.com/text and you can WhatsApp me. So when you type it into your phone, it automatically sends a message on WhatsApp to me. So you'll have my number and it sends a message.
Awesome.
So can you say that again? The Aspie World?
.com/text, TEXT.
That is an amazing resource that you provide to people to have that access. I have to say, that's highly unusual. I've never heard of that. That's
I know.
amazing.
Dude, like I will do what other people won't do because I know that like it gives me greater results and it helps more people. So why wouldn't I? Right? Stupid to not do that. Anyway, right. Gonna go and like.
Thank you.
Yes, it's awesome. Thanks so much, Dan. Looking forward to connecting again.
Have a super evening. Bye bye.
Peace out. Bye bye.